a late third, or even maybe a conditional fourth? I'm curious what you think about that, Greeny.
I don't think you have to wonder what I think. I assume that's a rhetorical question. I'm obviously disgusted by that in every way that a person can be. And it actually perfectly sets up our next subject. So I want everyone to see the juxtaposition of these two plays, okay? So Zach Wilson, the phenom quarterback from BYU, his pro day was Friday, and everyone was raving about this throw where he's rolling to his left and then throwing the ball back across his body to the right on a dime all the way. And everyone, oh, it's the greatest play we've ever seen. This is the reason why they need to draft him. But as Louis Riddick pointed out on Twitter, the Jets' current quarterback, Sam Darnold, made the exact same play, only he did it in an actual game with defenders actually trying to stop him from doing it. You see, he actually maintains his balance and makes almost exactly the same throw. And Louis Riddick posted that on Twitter, and he wrote, but I thought this kind of throw had never, ever been made before yesterday, which is about as good a use of the medium of Twitter as I've ever seen, parenthetically. But so I saw that, and my head just about wanted to explode because, you know, Orlovsky, okay, look at Dan. Go ahead, Dan, the floor is yours.
I heard a lot of Sam Darnold truthers out this weekend. I love the point by Lewis. Listen, I'm gonna, first of all, it's a sick throw by Zach Wilson. I don't want to knock the kid. That throw is sick. It's one of the sickest throws I have seen. I was with Matthew Stafford for 3 years. He would do stuff like this in practice. He'd be like, holy smokes, man, I don't know how you made that throw. So it's a sick throw. I think the reality is this, Greeny. After Friday, the Jets are going to take Zach Wilson, okay? They're going to take him with the number 2 pick. But that being said, it's not going to fix the organization. This throw by Zach Wilson is not going to dig this organization out of the gutter. It will not flip this organization. Guess why? Because they already have a guy on their football team that makes this kind of throw. What the Jets need to figure out with Zach Wilson is he going to handle the stress of being the number 2 pick? Is he going to handle the burden and expectation? Because he's not only the number 2 pick, he's the number 2 pick to an organization that has a guy that's like him and also is going to be passing on what looks like 4 first-round picks to trade out of that slot to select a guy like Zach Wilson. So they better figure out, does Zach Wilson's off-the-field talent match his on-the-field talent? Does he have Lamar Jackson's competitive spirit and Josh Allen's ability for his teammates to absolutely love him? Does he have Baker Mayfield's moxie? Does he have Patrick Mahomes' alpha leadership? Because that throw, it's awesome. But that throw is not going to fix the New York Jets. Sam Darnold couldn't do it, and he did it in a football game.
How about that, Neek? How about the idea that we see a splash play like that and all of a sudden the entire internet says, well, there you go. He's the 2nd pick in the draft. What else do we need to talk about? What do you think of when you hear that?
I hate to be the one raining on the parade, but again, it's fun. Let's take it for what it is. It's exciting. It's fun. It's a lot like when you see a basketball prospect do an incredible dunk. Yeah. You love it. You want to celebrate it. You jump out of your chair, but that's not going to win you a championship. And everything that Dan said is exactly right. A guy like Zach Wilson, the question isn't, can he throw the football deep or accurately or across his body? We already know that. The answer is yes, we knew that because we've seen him do it in games. But the question is, are the other additions that they've made to that organization going to help bolster Zach into being the quarterback that Sam Darnold could never become in that city? And maybe it's all Sam's fault, or maybe it's not all his fault. But it doesn't matter at this point. His time is done. He's going to be out. It's going to be Zach Wilson's turn, and hopefully for you, Greeny, and all Jets fans, they figured out everything around him, not just the quarterback.
Right. Well, I agree with you. I can tell you for certain it's not all his fault, but it is what's going to happen. I agree with that. So, Tannenbaum, let me come to you. You were a person who has sat in this chair. The decision that the team is making, the team at number 2, when you look at what San Francisco gave up to move up from 12 to 3, let's just say conservatively, they're choosing Zach Wilson over Sam Darnold and let's call it 3 number 1 picks. Is that the right decision, Mike Tannenbaum?
I believe it is. And Greeny, much to Dan Orlovsky's chagrin, look at the massive gap that the Jets are evaluating these 2 players. They could have literally had Zach Wilson or Darnold, the 12th pick, a 1 and a 3 next year, and a 1 in 2023. That is a massive difference in the evaluation of those 2 quarterbacks. Put those throws aside, but just player to player, it was either package A or package B. And I happen to agree that Joe Douglas and the Jets made the right decision to say, hey, we're going to go with Zach Wilson. I think he's just at a much higher level than Sam Darnold. I think his ceiling's higher, and he's also been more consistent. So, but that was really the lead that came out of the weekend to me. It wasn't about Miami, Philly, or San Francisco. Joe Douglas and the Jets made their decision. It's Zach Wilson, despite a massive haul they could have had from San Francisco.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
I agree with that. I think that the caveat that I would throw in there, Mike T, is if Sam Darnold was in his second year and they had 3 more years of evaluation and the cheap contract, I do think that would factor in it as well. This is the thing for me is I get it. The talent is remarkable. But Sam Darnold 3 or 4 years ago had an awesome pro day as well. I remember it was in the rain and everyone was like, wow, he threw the absolute tar out of the football in the rain. He looks amazing. And I know this because I've talked to people within that organization. Sam Darnold's football character is off the charts. His leadership is great. And that is a real thing in the NFL. I have said this for months now. Find me the last top 5 selection at quarterback that flipped an organization. And all of them are talented. They're all talented players. It takes a special person to do it. And that's my hang up. And Mike T, I would love to ask you this question. Does the character concerns, I'll quote them as, around Zach Wilson and the lack of the captaincy, missions, non-mission, coach-selected captain, does that factor into this at all, or is the talent that just extreme?
We'll make that a tease because I have to go to a break with the bottom of the hour coming up. We will answer that question and many more, I promise you, as we continue. And we'll also do this. Bruce Arians has choice words for the Bucs. Should they be taking notice or rolling their eyes? Dominique has a definitive answer. And we'll see if Dan can answer this. Who is the longest tenured active player on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? That's Sneaky Hembo. The answer's next. You're watching Get Up. Face each other in the Final Four, and then tomorrow they finish it up. Again, the Monday, Tuesday for the Elite Eight this year. We'll get back to that. Meanwhile, let's get to what happened on Friday. It was nuts. The Niners setting the trade frenzy in motion as they moved up, sending the 12th pick overall, plus 2 additional firsts and a third to the Dolphins for the number 3 pick in this year's draft. Miami continued the wheeling and dealing. They took that 12th pick. They packaged it together with some other moves and went up to get the Eagles pick at number 6. So Miami is now 6 overall. The Eagles are at 12. They could have as many as 3 first-round picks in next year's draft, depending on the compensation for Carson Wentz. That'll turn out based upon how much he plays this year. One way or another, it was nuts. And here's the current draft order of the top 15 picks. Remember, Mel Kiper, in his latest mock, had 4 quarterbacks going in the top 4. And the assumption is that remains the same with San Francisco making the move up there to get the 3rd pick. So now that we have had the weekend to digest all of this, I turn to our quarterback, Dan Orlovsky. What is the number 1 most important thought you have coming out of those huge trades on Friday?
Yeah, San Francisco went up to go get either Mac Jones or Trey Lance. I think the reality is that Kyle Shanahan, their head coach, probably loves Mac Jones, and the organization is very much so intrigued by Trey Lance. If we think about Kyle Shanahan, I played underneath him, and the 2 of the things that he used to stress all the time that he loved physically when it came to a quarterback was 1, a natural throwing motion, and then 2, this upper body torque to be able to throw when your feet aren't perfect. 2 quarterbacks at the top of this draft have those 2 physical traits. 1, Zach Wilson, and 2, Mac Jones. It's a perfect fit for Mac Jones to go in and play really well. And I also think that this organization has some intrigued with a guy, Trey Lance, that has almost unlimited physical traits.
I like what you're saying there, but I think that Kyle Shanahan has probably learned some things since you were under him, and those things were taught to him by probably Patrick Mahomes and also Jimmy Garoppolo. So, I think those things changed. What he saw Patrick Mahomes being able to do might lead him to look at somebody like Trey Lance, and the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo kind of stayed injured might lead him to look at somebody like Justin Fields. I think that maybe his opinion of quarterback and what he's looking for in quarterback always been athleticism, going back to his father. He's always wanted, all the way back to John Elway, an athletic quarterback who can move, which, that leads me to look more at Justin Fields, a tough guy who can take a shot in the ribs and still throw 1 million touchdowns in a championship game. Given what happened with Jimmy the last couple of years, I could see them looking at him, and given what happened to them in the Super Bowl, I could see them looking at a guy like Trey Lance and trying to recreate what they did in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes.
It does feel like those will be the 3 quarterbacks that'll be options for them. Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson figured to be off the board. So going up to 3, you're looking at Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and Mac Jones. And Mike Tannenbaum, you have sneaky big news that might give us a hint as to which way they're leaning.
So, Greeny, tomorrow there's a pro day at both Alabama and reportedly both John Lynch, the general manager of the 49ers, and Kyle Shanahan are going to be in Tuscaloosa to watch Mac Jones throw instead of Justin Fields at Ohio State. And again, that's not necessarily outcome determinative, but I think it's a very strong signal of which way they're leaning. And I do agree with Dan that Mac Jones is a perfect fit with Kyle Shanahan. And one thing that I think bears noting here, which is I have sat in that seat for two different teams. I think it's unbelievable to trade up 2 1s and a 3 for a quarterback in Trey Lance that started one